All right. Hey, man, I've been kind of wandering myself through the Psalms recently, and so I just thought, man, I don't think I've ever taught. Not, we're not going to teach through the Psalms. That'd be 3 years, right? I'm not doing it. So I call it a stroll through the Psalms. We're just going to kind of just pick out some of the Psalms and kind of work our way through them. And I'm really excited about the series. I don't know what you know about the Psalms and all of that. There are 150 of them. You do know that. I'm pretty sure most people kind of have gotten that together. But it wasn't like assembled at one time. And there were, that we know of, 7 different authors of these poems or songs or prayers or whatever they were. David has 73 that we know of. Some he have more than that, so almost half really were written by David. But Asaph is one of his chief instruments and worship leaders. He wrote some. The sons of Korah. You may remember Korah was Numbers 16, somewhere in that range. He decided that he would come and confront Moses and Aaron and go, hey, you guys, what makes you all leader? And so God had a conversation with Korah. He was swallowed up in the earth, and his son straightened up powerfully. So, so they began to write some of the psalms as well. A man named Heman wrote some. In fact, I think it's mentioned in First or Second Kings that that Solomon was wiser than anyone, even Heman. So we assume that he must have been pretty smart for the Bible to say, hey, Solomon's smarter than him. So he wrote at least one of the Psalms. And then Ethan, we don't know much about him either. He wrote one, and then Solomon and Moses had some that they wrote as well. And so these were collected over time. These, and really they are all of these. They're songs, they're poems, they're prayers. Usually in 2 categories that we would do these. There's the lamenting, which some of us do a lot of that recently, right? Where you're just like, oh God, there's just this lament that goes on. And so we find great encouragement in those because I guess if you want to say misery loves company, maybe, but it's just like, okay, everybody's life isn't all rosy and cheery. There's some struggle in their life too. And then there were psalms of praise, and so you see that all through there. Which reminds us of James when he says, hey, are any of you cheerful? And let him sing praise to God. Any of you in need, then let him pray, right? The focus is always on God, either prayer or praise. And so these Psalms are kind of likening to that. When Israel was forced out because of their rebellion and were taken over by Babylon, that's when they began to collect these into what we would call now books. There are 5 books within the book of Psalms categorized in there. And you can kind of see it once you start looking the way the last psalm of that book will all end in the same way. So it's kind of fascinating. We start diving deep into some of those things. And then the first 2 are not a part of the book, and the last 4 are not a part. There are 5 books, and then there's 4 chapters at the end. All of them, they all have the Hallel, right? Hallelujah. Praise Yah, so praise the Lord. All the last 4 all start with that phrase and end with that phrase. So they kind of went together, kind of as that climactic, end of things. The first 2 are more like a kind of a gateway to get our hearts right about, hey, this is where we're going, and so pay attention. And so that's kind of where we're going to start. If that makes sense to you all, that's kind of the whole. I mean, I gave you a lot of stuff in a very short time, but that's the book of Psalms that we have, and it's powerful in what it is. So in Babylon, this was kind of like their sacred devotion, like as they were being collected and then being read to the people who had scattered there. It was powerful truth and reminder, and that's where some of these came from, were some of those journeys as well. So. Here's where we are. Psalm 1. You're probably familiar with it. It's if you ever had troubled kids, you probably pulled out this psalm and read it to them and tried to remind them of why they ought to behave. And sometimes I guess the Lord's brought you to this place where you go, hey son, you maybe ought to pay attention to this. And so That's what we're going to do. And so we'll read it in just a minute. I want to kind of just think about it. Man, I I don't I've spent a decent amount of time on social media just trying to get a perspective of what's going on, and it's gotten more and more crazy. You see a post, and you start reading the comments. If you read the comments, I would advise you not to read the comments. I feel like my IQ drops every time I start reading comments on there. But what's interesting is it's like there's two alternate realities. Like we just saw the same statement, and then you start reading through there, and it's like, man, where did these people come from that think this or that? And it's insane. How do we absorb such a different understanding of things that we both are looking at? But yet it's true of everything, really, right? It goes back to this: what you believe in your head will settle itself in your heart, and that will be the attitude which you see life. I call that the windshield of life, right? So you believe a thought and embrace it, then it's going to change how your attitude is based on that thought, right? And then that thought, that attitude will dictate the actions that you do in any given set of circumstances. That's just practical truth. And so I think what we see in the world is there's a lot of people who believe some things that you and I don't believe about a lot of things. But yet, some of it is probably their algorithm and how they get into social media, but the other is because they believe that, they see everything that way. If you've got a negative bent on life, everything stinks, right? I mean, we know that. There are people who can't find happiness in anything because and it's the same situation. Even these things like firm foundation and some of those things, when hard times come, you and me have the ability to go, well, he's still God, right? And so we may not comprehend everything about the why, but there's a serenity in us. This is what Psalm 1 is helping us understand, that there are two paths. There are two, and when I say truths, I don't mean everybody has their version. There's one truth, right? But everybody has their perspective of it, which is a lie a lot of times, but is still what they believe to be true. So when I say believe, don't take that as factual truth. But this is what we're going to see here. There's two opinions in that sense. There's two paths. It's all of this. It's going to be played out in this whole thing. The life that you and I become is shaped by the path that we walk, and this is what he's going to talk about. And so let's just read it, and then I'm not trying to get really deep and heavy into this. These are meant to just be sung and then to let it work in its way in our heart. And so we're going to try and do that. Let me read it to you. I got a Bible New International Version, so if that's what you're looking at, that's going to be great. If not, be slightly different. Blessed is the one who does not walk in step with the wicked, or stand in the way that sinners take, or sit in the company of mockers, but whose delight is in the law of the Lord, and who meditates on his law day and night. That person is like a tree planted by streams of water, which yields its fruit in season, and whose leaf does not wither. Whatever they do is prosperity. Not so the wicked. They are like chaff that the wind just blows away. Therefore the wicked will not stand in the day of judgment, nor sinners in the assembly of the righteous. For the Lord watches over the ways of the righteous, but the ways of the wicked leads to destruction. Now, just a reminder before we jump into this, that's kind of how God in his sovereignty wanted us to see. Before we ever kind of open the gates of praise or lamentation and walk in, he wants us to think this way. And so this is, to me, a powerful aspect of what this looks like. So the first thing he says is blessed, right? Now, that's a simple term, asheria. It means happy. It's in the plural, which I don't understand why it's in the plural, so it's happies. I just think it's kind of funny. Happies is the one. Like, I guess you want to think of it in terms of it's like a bag of happy, not just, okay, I'm happy. I got a little happy. I'm happy here. It's like, no, I got a whole sack of happy, right? And that's kind of how I think we have to see it. I know no other way to make sense that it would be plural other than something like that. And so read it like that. Like, how much happiness, how much do you carry around? How much are, well, I have it over here, I hate my job, right? Well, how about we figure out how to carry happies everywhere? If that makes sense to you. And so this is what he says. He says, blessed, happy, right? Listen, happiness isn't the pursuit. This is what people think, because everybody's talking about the Constitution these days, because everybody's arguing about everything about that. But it said one of the rights that we have is the pursuit of happiness. I would kind of argue that happiness isn't what we're pursuing. It's not a pursuit; it's a result, right? I mean, you can try to chase happy, but what does that mean? I mean, like, I'd be happy if I had that car. Well, but really? I like to think of it more as it's a byproduct of us doing the things that really matter, right? And so that's how I like to see it. And so that's kind of how I'm looking at it here. When you and I pursue Christ, His truth and His holiness, happy finds us. That's what I believe. I believe that it doesn't matter whether I have the car of my dreams or not the car of my dreams, or I've got the job I want or I don't have, or the salary I want or the salary I don't have, or the family that I want or the family that I don't have. I think happiness is found when we're rooted and our foundation is firm in Jesus. Happiness shows up even in the midst of that. This is, I believe, how we ought to see this psalm. And so that's what he starts with, right? And so the first thing that we see here is he's going to tell us there's a path to resist. Like it's like there's something that you and I have to say no to. And I like the idea of that. Look what he says. Blessed is the one who does not walk, right? He didn't say, hey, blessed are you if you'll. He started with a negative. And I guess I kind of understand that why. Because any of us that like want to lose weight or want to do all those things, you have to start with like not eating certain things, right? You have to go to your pantry and you have to start. Okay, well, all right, this has to go, right? And Becca just brought me some potato chips. They're avocado oil, potato, and sea salt. That's a weakness of mine. And if it's Lay's potato chips, I'll eat it, and I'm killing myself. And so it's good to go, no, that's not coming in my house anymore. I'm so grateful you walked in with that, right? But first it starts with getting rid of these things, right? And so this is what he's saying here. There's certain things we have to say no to in our diet if we want to get healthy. We have to go, a little less carb, a little more protein, a little less processed, a lot more natural, right? All those things go into it. And so we know at the start, if we want to lose weight, there's something I've got to stop doing. Same thing financially. We're at the age where we kind of like to maybe, retire someday. And right now we've got enough to live a week if we do, and so we're not. But if you want to do that, one, you should have been smarter than me and started planning back when you were 19 or 20 instead of, right here at the time when you should. But the point is, there's certain things you have to stop doing if you're going to do that, right? You can't just buy everything you see. You can't let Amazon dominate, your spending habits, or Walmart, whatever it is that you choose, because it's easy. Oh, I like that. Bam, right? And so we have to stop. And it's the same way in life. If I want a different life, it starts with stop doing the things that we're doing. This isn't hard. I know we've had these conversations with our kids before, I know, right? But it's still hard. Because here's the thing. It's a slow drift, and this is what he's going to let us know. Nobody starts off going, man, I just want to have a horrible life. Nobody does that, right? But it's a slow drift. And he's going to show it to us, and we're going to look at it. There's a little bit of walking with the wrong crowd that sometimes can do that. There's a little bit of lingering with that wrong crowd. And then there's the opportunity where you decide, I'm going to be that wrong crowd, right? That's really the process of what he's saying. We see it here. Look at what he says. Who does not walk in step with the wicked, right? So that's that My dad's favorite verse, I think, for me was "Be not deceived, bad company corrupts good morals." Right? He would quote that to me constantly, and I think I've shared with you, man. I was a freshman in high school, and my high school was so much bigger than my grammar school. And so that first semester kind of thing, I didn't know anybody, and there was one kid, except for one guy in my youth group who had a friend, and my my dad made judgments pretty quick, right or wrong. He was that guy, right? And so you had long hair, you were bad, those are the kind of the ways it was. Anyway, he told me, he said, "I don't want you hanging around that guy anymore at all." I thought, "Dad, you were crazy." And it wasn't until the next week when the police showed up at our school, went to his locker, pulled out the drugs, and I thought, thank God my dad spared me. Because listen, when my dad said don't, I just didn't. I don't know why I was that compliant. My dad wasn't like this rough man. I just knew if he said it, he was a man of his word. So I just respected Big Jim, right? I mean, that was just going to be it. But that's my point. This is exactly what he's saying here, right? Do not walk in step with the wicked, right? You start hanging around people this is silly though, but you start hanging around people that cuss. Occasionally, those cuss words are going to make their way in your brain, and if you're not careful, it's going to come out your mouth. I see this happen at work a lot. I see guys who, they claim Christ and all that, and then you hear them say that word, and everybody's like, what? Because it's unnatural. And so sometimes it just happens like that, right? Just by kind of osmosis. But sometimes, and it's so many things, negative attitudes, all of that. He says that's the wicked, right? And so here's what I would encourage you and me to think about. Who are we listening to, right? Because that's really what this is talking about. Counsel becomes conduct, right? Who you listen to becomes how you end up conducting yourself. You can see that. I mean, I remember Abby was a little girl, precious, sweet little girl. And she'd go hang out with these other friends that we used to go to church with. Their kids were a little different. And she would come home, and we knew she had hung out with that. I didn't have to ask. Have you been hanging around? I'm not going to name names, but I'd say, she's been hanging around them, hasn't she? Yeah. Why? Because her attitude and her conduct changed. Well, how did that happen? She had some counsel from some other little 5-year-old brats, right? And that's what happened. I'm not saying that my little girl was perfect. I'm just saying, but that's what happens. And it happens to you and me too. You start hanging out and listening to things on social media that sends you over the edge because they're over the edge, you're going to be there. I see it all the time on social media. You see it everywhere. And so I know we're adults here and we think, well, this is a lesson for kids, but au contraire. I think we all need to be reminded that we imitate that which we listen to on a frequent basis. And so this is what he's saying here. Listen, counsel, who we listen to is going to affect our conduct. And then he says this, or stand in the way that sinners take. And so he called those that we're listening to wicked, right? And I think it's only fair to say there are only two categories in all. We like to make a bunch of categories out of everything. There's really only two. You're either a God guy or you're not. You're either walking in light or you're walking in darkness. There's no walking in dawn or twilight. You're either dark or light. It's black and white from God's perspective. And so if you're listening to people who are not followers of Christ and getting your info and truth from that, you're probably going to end up being where you don't want to be. And so this is I know that sounds like just black and white, but that's how he speaks, right? And then so there's the wicked. Now he refers to them as the sinner because it's their lifestyle. Look what he says, or stand in the way that sinners take. And so what happens there is once we start lingering, then our conduct becomes my community, right? Now I've got a whole lot of people that think in a way that I shouldn't be thinking, but I kind of gravitated toward that. Do y'all remember the story Pinocchio? You remember when Pinocchio decided he wanted to hang out with the rough crowd, and they go to the pool hall and they're playing pool, and all of a sudden, like the donkey tail comes out, they turn into proverbial asses, right? That's what happens to anybody who's doing this. You start listening to wicked people and then you start lingering with them, you're going to find yourself, I won't say the word again because my mama, if she was listening, would be mad at me, but we're going to end up like that, right? And so this is what he's saying here. Hanging around the wrong crowd. And we don't have to do it in proximity. Again, I think social media is the ruination of so many. I see my grandkids struggling with that. And I see people my own age struggling with that. And so we tend to downgrade ourselves with the crowd that we hang out with, right? Like it's a lot easier for the world to pull me down than for me to pull the world up. Don't you find that true? I can find myself in a shiny pit faster than I want to. And I can find myself in the Slough of Despond, if you're familiar with the Pilgrim's Progress. I can find myself there as well. And so he's saying, listen, be careful where you linger. It's going to get you in trouble. And so then the third one, he gets to this and he says this, sit in the seat of mockers. So now these are the ones who, they're wicked and their lifestyle is one of sinning constantly. And now they turn and they mock everybody who doesn't embrace their lifestyle, right? That's the picture of what he's showing. So you're hanging around people who are stupid, wickedly stupid. And their lifestyle is that they live out that stupid, wicked lifestyle. And now they mock everybody who doesn't agree with them. And he says, this is where you're going. If you're not careful and you don't embrace, and we're going to get to the good stuff in a minute, but we have to go to the bad stuff first. This is it. So if we follow the logic, counsel becomes our conduct becomes our community, and then our community has now become my identity. Like that's who I am. That's scary. I have seen a lot of people, good people I watched grow up in my own church, people that I watched grow up in my own family, who began to listen to the wrong stuff, linger with the wrong people, and begin to just join that community, and they still struggle. You know people like that, and you go, how can you be that stupid? Well, because it's like the frog in the kettle. It's a slow drift that way, and then you end up that way. And so this is not for everybody else, though. This is for you and me. You and me have to wrestle with this. So that's the first section of this thing, right? The path to resist. And then he says the second thing is the truth we delight in, right? And so he says this. So blessed, I'm going to read so we get the context and flow. Blessed is the one who does not walk in step with the wicked, or stand in the way that sinners take, or sit in the company of mockers, but whose delight is in the law of the Lord. Delight. That's the word there. It's interesting. If you muddle this word all the way down through the Hebrew, it's more of a moan than it is anything else. Now, this is going to sound silly to you until you understand it. But you know how your body kind of begins to be in sync with what you delight in? My grandson Gage, you guys know Gage. Gage, when he was younger, loved to eat. And it showed. He was a chunky. He loves me to send him chunky pictures because he's not that. He's like, whatever happened to him, he's got no body fat. And so they just remind him of where he came from. But they lived with us for 2 years when he was doing that growing up stage. And we would lay food out and he would start humming and he would start talking to his food. It was the craziest thing. He would just go crazy over it. Like, I mean, I don't even want to mimic it because I can't do it. But she knows, it was insane. He just talks to his food. That's literally the word here for delight. That's what I don't know any other way to explain it, but that's what it's like, right? We make those noises when we eat. And so here's what he says, but his delight, what makes you do that, right? What makes you go, man, wow. He says his delight is in the law of the Lord. And just so we have perspective, he's not talking about all the good stuff that we find in this section of the Bible. He's talking about Leviticus and the law, Numbers, the things we read to go to sleep at night, I shouldn't say that out loud, but you know what I mean. I mean, it's that kind of thing. But he's like, oh, I love this stuff. You can picture David sitting on the hillside trying to stay awake because he had the night watch with his sheep, but what's keeping him awake? Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. Oh, how I love your law. How I love the night watch so that I can meditate on your law, right? And I'm like, okay, but this is him. He delights in that stuff. So this is what we would call that transformation diet, right? I mean, you can't just not eat bad stuff. You can't just take a shot or a pill or whatever it is they're doing these days to lose weight. Because as soon as you stop that, you're going to gain again. There has to be a transformation diet. There has to be, for those of us who do that, there has to be an uptake of your protein and a little less carb and a lot more moving, right? You can't just go, I'll just take the shot. The shot will kill you at some point down the road. And I'm not a scientist or a doctor. I'm just telling you that's what goes on. So I think here's what happens, and this is why I want to say when we delight in this stuff, the church, what we're doing right here, me teaching, it can curb your appetite potentially if the Lord would use me in that way. It would curb your appetite for wanting to chase the world. You'll leave here going, yeah, that was pretty good. I should probably try to be better, right? But it's the self-study that changes your outlook, right? So if we think in terms of diet, church can't be your Ozempic, right? I mean, if that's all you're doing is coming to church and hearing somebody do a sermon, you're motivated until you're not. But if you start ingesting good, healthy food, the scriptures, like meditate, like, wow, that was, like read it until you have a gauge moment where you just start talking about how great it is, right? Find that stuff. That's going to change your life, right? And so, I feel like, we're all mature believers here, but I just think it's important to remind ourselves, I can't feed myself on what some of my pastor buddies I like listening to delight in. I have to find my own stuff to delight in. So if I could tell you anything, it would be just open up this book and read it. If you need some help, do the Bible recap. There's 1,000 things out there you can do just to digest this truth. And this is what it is. The little social media snippets and all that stuff, they can't change your life the way you just get away and open up this book and start reading it. I think that's why hard times are so powerful for most of our lives, because we tend to open this up a lot more when life's hard than when it's happy. And so I know I've found times where I just open this Bible up when life just makes absolutely no sense and I'm struggling, or I make no sense to myself. I'm struggling, that I start reading this and there's something in it that changes my life. And so this is I guess if I'm telling us anything, it's like we have to get to this place where we delight in the Word. And if I can help you figure that out, I'd love to. But I do think it's just good just to read the Scriptures. Get an app that reads it to you if you don't read well. Find a plan to read through some things. Or just do the old thing they always told us not to do. Just open your Bible to a passage and read it. If you didn't like it, then go to another one. but just get it in you. And then he says this. He says, it meditates on the law day and night. That person. So he's giving us contrast, right? We're not going to be the ones that linger and listen. I listen, linger, and then become a part of the community, belong in that sense. We're going to be the ones that delight in the Word. I'm not going to delight in the junk that I have been feeding on. I'm going to delight in what is good, healthy food. This really is a lot like diet eating, right? No processed foods. No, that would be like your little reels you're watching on YouTube or whatever that help you see things. It's not that. It's like get real food. This is it right here. This is what he's saying to do. And then he says, this is who you become. That person is like a tree planted by streams of water, which yields its fruit in season, and whose life does not wither. Whatever they do prospers. There's There's a difference in having a potted plant and a planted plant. One you plant or one you pot, right? If you plant a tree by water, like that's why you go down a river stream and you see those trees that are, I love when we get to do that. And those trees are hanging over and they're lush and it's powerful. It's because the nutrients are right there, right? You get a potted plant, it's dependent on something outside that source to do that. Somebody has to come along and water it, right? Or it's going to die. And so we want to be planted. This is what he's saying, right? Known by our fruit consistently. That's what he's saying, really. Those are the three things he's saying. The person is like a tree planted. That's one, right? Planted, so that I get great nourishment, which is this. I'm planted in this word here. If this word is always flowing in my life, I can't have a bad day. And I mean, the day can be bad, but I won't be bad. And he says then, which yields fruit in the season. So there's people see it. People can derive a benefit from my being that kind of person. And then I am consistent with it, right? It's every season. You can count on it like clockwork. Tammy and I were talking yesterday. We went to the birthday party that we had, and then one of my other great nieces was getting baptized today, as a matter of fact. And the dad was talking to me. He said, "What do you think?" Because she's young. He said, "What do you think about that?" The dad was, and I said, "Well," I said, here's what I won't get on all of it. Yeah, here, my take is, Peter baptized the jailer and his whole household. Peter baptized Cornelius and his whole household. I prefer to wait till my kids understood the actual gospel aspect of things before they got baptized. But what you do find is that of all the people that I feel like I baptized, the story is very similar. Well, I got baptized when I was a kid, but I don't know if I was saved. And so then they want to get baptized again. And then the dad said, "Well, that was kind of me." And I said, "But it's okay, though. I mean, I'm not telling you one way, and I don't. I would encourage people, if that's what you believe your child wants to do, and then you should do that and not worry about it." I've been on both sides. I've been the guy that's been really critical. No, unless they can give me the 5 points of Calvinism, what knowledge, but I'm just saying no. But my point was not that. My point was the conversation that she and I had afterwards on the way home, and we were just talking about our own baptism. I was baptized at 9 or 10 years old, but I believe it. I believe I was saved at 9. But we began to grow. And so then we began to talk. I remember growing very specifically when we were teaching. We taught young marrieds and we taught student ministry. But with the student ministry, we just opened up what I've read to y'all lots of times, the Gospel Interwoven, where it's taken all 4 of the Gospels and kind of meshed them together. We taught through that in a season in our youth group. It was life-changing for me. And for those who were there, it was life-changing because we were seeing Christ real time. I taught through the gospel, the book of 1 John, which the whole point of that book is, I write these things that you may know you have eternal life. I don't know how many people I know that I hope I'm saved. I hope I make it. I don't know. Well, you should be able to know. And that book changed her life as we walked through that book together. And it gave me solid confirmation that it ain't got diddly squat to do with me. And everything to do with him. And then when I walked through Ephesians and James as a pastor, because I never studied to teach. I studied to preach. I never studied to preach or teach. I studied to know. So like these, I didn't study this for y'all. I studied this for me, and I thought, well, while I'm studying this, why don't we just have a conversation, right? And so that's kind of the difference. A lot of pastors manipulate or put sermons together for the crowd. I just let God beat me up, and then I just get to share it with you. That's kind of. But my point is this: those times of doing that's where phrases like when hard times come, I'll make the statement: it's a deficit that's going to be an asset. That life-giving fruit for me comes from delighting in the law of the Lord. right? Like, man, how good is that? All things work together for good to those that love him and are called according to his purpose. Not everything's good, but everything will work for my good. Wow, okay, I can breathe, right? And why? Well, because, man, I'm planted myself by this truth. And during hard times, that carried me through. Phrases like, if God don't help, help ain't coming. Man, I was a season of my life where I felt like I was getting betrayed by everybody. And you start looking around and then you begin reading the scriptures and you go, man, but he says you'll never leave me nor forsake me. That's a whole new meaning when you're going through betrayal life, right? And so you start looking at that and it's like all of a sudden you see this fruit, right? And you're like, it's okay. If the whole world, I'm all right. I'll be all right. I mean, if Tammy starts betraying me, then maybe. But I mean, I'm going to be all right. I say things like, I'm invincible until God says otherwise, right? She was worried first time I went on a mission trip, or one of the times, because it was like every time I would go, something crazy would happen. Literally something crazy happened almost every mission trip. But I remember praying for her about that, and then me as well. It was like, the book of Acts says about David. Now, when David had fulfilled the purposes of God, he slept with his fathers. Like, you got to get to the end before you get to die. And my days are numbered. So I'm invincible until he says, yep, it's over. Right? And so I don't, people say, why don't you worry and get stressed out about things? Because by God's grace, man, I was planted by this word. Not because I want to, forced to, because it was hard times. Lamenting about why is life so hard. And out of that, it begins to flow, and then you see it change. It changed the thought, and it began to change an attitude, and then my actions are free. This is so powerful, what he's saying here. And so I just want even the phrase my mama taught me, right? This too shall pass. I mean, she didn't actually. I mean, she did teach it, and she left me a what do you call it? Like a marker in my office. I've got it right there. It says, "This too shall pass," because that was her favorite saying, right? And so that kind of marked my life too. Like hard times come, I go, they come and they go. What are you going to do? All right, Job. Lord gives, Lord takes away. Let's be the name. I'm not going to pout because it feels like it's against me right now, because I know he's not against me. And so you only get this by deep diving into the word, right? And so then he says this, and I feel like I'm rambling now, but he says this, not so the wicked. They're not anything like that. They're like chaff. Like you're like a tree, and you're not going to blow over, right? You've seen those massive trees that still stand after those tornadoes come through, right? Not the wicked. That's not them. The wicked are like chaff. That's where they would take the wheat and throw it up in the air and because the chaff was so light, it had no foundation, had no weight to it. It just blew away. And what came down then was the kernel of the wheat. That's what this means. And he says, not so the wicked. They're like that. They're like that little husk on the outside of it that the wind just carries it any way you want, right? This is what he says. They're blown away. They have no roots. But it says this though. The wind blows away. Therefore, the wicked will not stand in judgment. They have no source of nourishment, and so they're just tossed to and fro, and their life looks like that. And so when Judgment Day comes, they demonstrate they have no fruit. They didn't do it, right? That's how he says he's going to judge, and they had no fruit. And so then he says this: for the Lord watches over the way of the righteous, but the way of the wicked leads to destruction. And I think in terms of the fact that, man, when the Lord saved me, I became one of his sheep that he knows. And he taught me how to hear his voice. And he is the Psalm 23 shepherd, right? He's got one mission: keep the wolves at bay and lead me to green pasture. And you think, how powerful is that? But those that aren't, their shepherd is a wolf in sheep's clothing, right? And their shepherd is an evil shepherd. And they lead them into the danger and allow them to die. And that's the difference. That's what he says here. For the Lord watches over the righteous. Why? Because he's my shepherd. He's not theirs. They didn't want him to be, the wicked. And so this is the text. I can't wait to get into the rest of these Psalms. But anyway, that is Psalm 1, kind of the introductory aspect to these things. And so I can't wait. You know what to do. I don't have to go back through the points. Just open the book. Read the book till you start moaning like Gage does with his food, and we'll be all right. Let's sing our way.